Hi, and welcome to the R2RB podcast series. And today I have with me the CEO of True Heart Records, Jeff Popka. True Heart Records is an independent record label and an event management company based in Evansville, Indiana, but international in scope. True Heart Records wants to help, educate, and guide you. They are dedicated to uplifting emerging independent bands and artists, collaborating to provide guidance and opportunities for live performances and career advancement. At True Heart Records, their passion fuels everything they do, where passion and sound unite. So, Jeff, how the heck are you? And thank you for joining me.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm
Good.
doing a little traveling and getting some things done, but always working no matter what's going on.
Right. I know. You got that laptop in hand and phone in the other hand, and off we go.
That's exactly it.
I know how that goes. Oh my gosh. All right. So I'd like to ask two questions to get us warmed up. If you could
Okay.
have a conversation with a past or present music artist, who would it be and why?
Well, I could probably list off about 1,000, but I'll tell you, first off, I want to thank you, Deborah, for having me on. And it's a
You
good thing that you do this for people and what you are doing. And I thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. And that gave me time to think.
Okay. All right.
But
Now you're on the spot.
yeah. So no, I really have two, and that's my issue. I can't decide between the two.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you two,
All right.
and then I'll tell you the reasons why.
All right.
So first off, Jackson Browne. Jackson Browne, I have been a fan of his since before I was a teenager.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I had Dr. My Eyes 45. I remember that.
Me too.
And I just kind of stayed with him my life, listening to him. And he's just such an exceptional songwriter.
Yeah.
And his creativity around that is it's amazing. He's an amazing performer. So I would definitely love to talk to him and explore how he created, what inspires him. I know a lot of it. He did take on a lot of issues, political issues and that as well.
Right.
I'm not so big on that, but he writes from his heart, and that's a big thing to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the second one would be Tom Petty. And Tom Petty he was also a great songwriter, but his was more like an everyday man songwriter.
Yes.
People could relate to him, the words, and he always had great lines in his songs, and he always incorporated humor in whatever he did too. But Tom was just a fun guy, and I just think it'd been really cool to hang out with him.
I like those two. Absolutely. Yeah. I wouldn't mind sitting in on those conversations. All right. And the second question is, what's your favorite app on your phone?
It's got to be Apple Music because I wear it out.
Yeah, that seems to be a biggie. I've heard that one once or 10 times.
There's nothing I like better than sitting outside with my headphones, listening to Apple Music when it's nice and warm and sunny, and
I agree.
just staring at the lake that we live on and watching the wildlife. It's the most relaxing. It's probably music for me is probably like meditation for other people.
Yeah, agreed. And definitely here on the East Coast, we're finally getting into some warm weather. So I like that combination as well. All right. So you have over 25 years of nonstop dedication to indie music and the restaurant venue industry. So walk us through that and kind of tell us who Jeff Popka is.
So I've got a degree from Purdue in restaurant, hotel, institutional management. And I figured that's my career. I would work my way up the corporate ladder. And I did. I spent 11 years right out of college with them. The restaurant business never lit me on fire. It was just hard work and a lot of it, but I do like to keep busy, and I was always juggling things in my head. So I always had a lot of things going on. So as I did that, one of my friends and his mom were going to open a restaurant in Fort Myers Beach, Florida, called Crab Louie's. And they asked me to come down and be their general manager. At first, I refused. I went down there. I liked the concept, the location, and all that, but I would have to relocate my family to do that at the time. That was a big factor. None of our kids were in school, though, at that point.
Oh, boy.
So that made it easier. But I first turned them down, but then they offered partial ownership to me. I really couldn't say no at that point.
Okay.
So I'm like, yeah, that's going to change things for us. So I accepted that. We went down there. We opened a restaurant right on the beach, right across from the Gulf. It was a restaurant bar, and we turned it into a music venue as well. I started working with bands there. We ran that for a few years, sold that, put some money in our pocket, and then I turned around and went back home to Indiana from Fort Myers. I started dabbling in politics, and I became the superintendent of the Lake County Fairgrounds in Crown Point, Indiana.
Okay.
And there, I got to watch promoters that were putting on shows there. So I learned it from the ground up, watching what they were doing and mostly figuring out what they were doing wrong. So then I started doing it myself, and it just kind of grew and grew. We built some concert series that ran for a while. We met some great people like Jim Peterick and the Ides of March and Survivor. The Bodines played there, the Smithereens, Dave Mason, a lot of old timers. But so I kind of learned it backwards, if you think about it. So with the shows that I started working on were the larger ones, but then I started doing smaller ones and working with local and regional artists. And I really enjoyed that more.
The smaller venues, smaller artists.
Because it was more personal,
right.
And I really felt like I was helping them. And I did that for 11 years. It was kind of a trend, 11-11. But no matter what I've done, and after that, we moved out to California for a while. I got into internet radio. And then I was developing talk shows for 2 different radio stations, one out of Phoenix, one out of San Diego. And I was an executive producer developing these talk shows with authors and self-help gurus mostly. And then I'm like, why am I not doing this for myself with music? Then that's when I started Indie on Air. And so I used to do interviews like you're doing right now.
Okay.
I was really bad at it. When it started, I was really, really bad at it.
We learn from our mistakes.
Yes. Trial and error.
It is.
That expanded my contacts within the music business, because as all these bands are sending me music to play, and I'd interview them, and then I also interviewed music business people, and that's how I got to know some different record labels and different people as well.
Basically how I've grown as well I actually started with the women entrepreneur side, but once I started doing some indie music and then getting connected with those indie artists and getting the nerve up to finally ask for an interview, you connect the dots. So the next person you tag on to, and the next person sending you music, like you said, and here we are doing what we do.
Yep, exactly. It's all about relationships, and how you get along with people. And if you connect with them, you stay in touch.
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. And that's where my contacts, as I just said, I've connected with one person, and then the next one, sometimes, and now I'm to the point where I do have those reaching out to me for an interview. It's like, me? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what happened with me. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Oh my God. So you've been a journalist as well, correct?
Yeah, I wrote as a journalist. I covered independent bands that, each month I would have the Reverb Nation Artists of the Month. What I would do is write articles on them and their music. I did that for 3 years for Ion Indie Magazine. And that was fun because I always like to write a little too.
Can I safely say that all the roads that you have traveled has led you to True Heart Records? And if I remember, you were retired, kind of, maybe, quote unquote.
I was semi-retired, and I am like the worst retired person in the world because my mind don't stop. I have to keep busy. When I told my wife I was just going to stop, because after COVID, which cost us a lot of concerts and tours that we had set up just wiped out. And I had spent the whole previous year traveling the country, setting up these different things. It was just all gone, after we invested all this money doing that. And then I had personal medical issues. I had open heart surgery the next year. And I'm like, I'm retiring.
That's it.
Yeah. My wife's like, sure. And I said, no, I am. And I took 2 years off. And then I'm like, I can't do this. I can't sit around. I just can't do it. Called a couple of my friends and said, I'm going to start a new label. And that's how True Heart came around.
So when you were talking to your business partners, did you collaborate together to put down your fundamental ideas for True Heart Records, or did you come to the table with the basics of True Heart Records and then collaborate with your two other partners?
Yeah, well, one of my partners worked with me at Indiana Air Records. That was Tracy Mears. He was our production director. So getting him on board was really easy. We had already worked together for a while. Okay. Plus, we also managed a barbecue restaurant for a while in Evansville, Indiana. We worked together there as well. So as I said, I always got a lot going on.
I'm sitting here shaking my head. Oh my God.
And then Steve Wright from New Zealand, he came on board, and I've known Steve for years. He had released a song called Revolution Girl with his band Sugar Gliders. I was one of the first to play it in the United States.
Oh, wow.
And so we connected then. And then he eventually came to Texas Indie Fest in Austin, Texas during South by, and he performed at our festival. Me, him, and my director of operations, Rick Bedell at the time, we all roomed together and did the whole week. So we became really good friends. And so when he heard that I was doing this again, he reached out to me and said, hey, we talked. I'm like, well, there you go. Now we'll have an office in Evansville, Indiana, and we'll have one in Taupo, New Zealand.
That is so cool.
Again, relationships, networking, connecting. And Steve, he brings a lot to the table. He was a touring musician himself in the UK and in Australia. When we start putting our networks together, our connections together, it becomes pretty vast.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Especially when you become international. When did you launch True Heart Records? True Heart
Records, I launched in July of 24.
So you're relatively new.
When it comes to that. Yeah. But not new to a label.
No. You have a few years behind you to set up this new label.
It was very important to me that I did it very different than everybody else.
Yes. So let's go there. So what's the mission of True Heart Records?
To help as many independent artists as we possibly can. They're all yelling in a crowd trying to get attention.
Yes.
They all have people trying to sell them things. They all have people telling them they don't have a chance because no one knows who they are. So they get beat down, and when all they really need is a lift up, a hand up. That's a big driving force of mine, is just to help elevate people. A lot of people take advantage of them, give them terrible advice. There's certain ways you got to go about things. And if they don't know how can they?
Exactly.
You're not going to college to get a degree in being a frontman in a band. You're on the streets earning it.
That's right. If you don't have people that can give you the knowledge that you need to succeed, then sometimes they're just, fighting this battle and it doesn't go anywhere. And I know so many of them get frustrated and just call it quits.
Exactly.
What type of indie artists do you work with? I mean, do you work with everybody? Somebody starting out, somebody in the middle?
I'll give advice to anybody about it where I can help them. There has to be an iota of talent for where they're at in their career. Mm-hmm. So it's not just, anybody in a garage, we're going to say, come work with us. But if they're starting out, we can help them build a foundation and which they can build on so they start out right, and that they treat their band or whatever as a business.
Yes.
And so they protect themselves, they set themselves up legally the correct way. So they don't make all the mistakes that I've seen so many bands make, and then they ultimately implode from those mistakes.
Absolutely. So what you do is, like you said, is different from what the other labels are doing, right?
By far.
Yeah. And so I've done my little research, and I've done some reading, and what I've liked and what I've read about True Heart Records. You work with the indie artists and you give them the tools, like you said, that's going to help them with their career, as far as they're willing to go, because those who really want to be in it for the long haul can't be faint at heart, right? I mean, they really have to put all of themselves into it, or it's not going to work.
That's right. A lot of them don't realize it's going to be as tough as it is. Especially if they're starting out, they're thinking, "Oh, this is fun. This is fun." We're out here jamming and playing and partying and blah 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 blah, and that's only going to last so long and go so far. At some point, you got to say, "Listen, I'm going to make something of this. I'm going to try and build a career out of it."
Yeah.
And then you got to take the steps to do so. And that's why we look at educating and empowering artists.
Absolutely. So you have the program called Digital Manager Program, and this is something new.
What I think it's groundbreaking, and this is why I created it, because we charge $35. $35 to be in the digital manager program, and that basically covers administrative costs. That's it. And there is no contract. There's no contract involved. Everything's month to month on that. If you want to be able to give us a call, or if you want to get us on the line, we will advise you, answer your questions, but you're not tied into anything. You can step away. There's times of the year artists aren't performing, especially usually around holiday time, and that a lot of them aren't. Why are they paying somebody to manage them, or why are they paying for something they're not really using at those times? Because most labels now are about selling services. Either if you're not signed to a major label, you've got these other labels, but they're really just selling you things. Oh, we can do that for such and such $1. And it's hundreds of dollars that they charge. Well, with us, they can just call us up, and I could tell them, number one, this is how you do it. And if I teach you how to do it, you'll never have to pay anybody again to do that, such as distribution. No matter what it is, we can teach you how to do it, how to go around, how to build tour, and what to look out for, and things to consider, how to budget, things like that. That's what we do. And it's so different because we're not looking to make money off the backs of the artists. So basically, what I like to say is we take money out of the equation. We have ways of making money, but not at their expense. What we'd like to do is, because we do live events, we design festivals.
Yeah.
We host festivals. We do a lot of digital content, and we're working on a lot right now in that regard. I'm more interested with us is building creative content with the artists. Then we'll make our money together.
And that is such a different concept, like you said, from other labels. You are empowering these indie artists with education that I don't think they would get anywhere else on the level that you are offering, and for the minimal amount that you charge.
Right, because they don't want their money. Most indie bands or indie artists don't have a lot of money.
They don't. They're not making hundreds of dollars off the streaming platforms. They're not making hundreds of dollars off of, if they have a website, they're just not doing it if they're not doing the backside of working the business correctly.
Exactly.
And to get to that point, you need somebody like True Heart Records.
That's what I think.
Good. We think alike. So there's a couple of components to this program. It's called One Sheet, and then, having a bio and a business plan. Why do you think those three components are so important to every single indie artist?
Because it's a basic foundation. How you present yourself to people says a lot. If you send a bio out and you write it in the back of your van when you're on the road. This is our bio, blah, 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 blah. And it's just really choppy and poorly written. Don't do it. Don't send it out because it's not going to help you get any gigs. The same with the one sheet. If it's not done professionally, and by professionally, I just mean certain standards where it looks good. You got good high quality photos. Your bio's included in that as well. But you want to make it exciting and appealing and why someone should hire you to play at their venue. And so many indie artists, they always minimize what they've done. And that's one thing, especially, when they're newer, a few years into it, they like, well, I played in this state. I can give a good example. There was a band out of Kentucky. They go, oh, we really haven't played much, outside of the region. And I said, really? They go, yeah, we did a few shows in, I think it was Virginia and Tennessee and Indiana. There's a couple other places. And I'm like, that shows that you've been on the road and you've been touring. That does not make you a regional band. So,
Right.
it's frame of reference. But so many artists do that. They're like, well, I played here, but it really wasn't a big show and blah. You played there. Use
Exactly.
it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's even on a regular resume. I mean, it's
Exactly. Yes.
if you've done it somewhere, it may not be something you do all the time, but yeah, put it on that resume.
Experience. You got touring experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I get emails from the indie artists submitting MP3s and I do ask for a bio, many times I don't get that bio. I will get an MP3 with a short email, which is fine. I don't mind that. But I can see the difference in what you're speaking about right now. Somebody that either has had a mentor or has had somebody behind them, explaining the steps and how to take their business, their music to the next level versus somebody that, still is their passion. I won't take that away from anybody, but I can see the difference. I'll get the MP3, but I won't even get the information. They haven't even sent the correct information for me to play it on the air. That's the other part. Indie artists sometimes, you need all that information if you want to get paid. I don't mind playing your music, but I want you to get paid as well. And that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, you start getting into metadata and
yeah. But
tagging your music correctly.
Exactly. But I see the difference. Not that I turn anybody away, but I just, just in reference to what we're speaking about, I see the difference between those who have either been in the music industry for many years or somebody starting out that has somebody to guide them along the way versus somebody that's, loving it and has a passion, but hasn't really had anybody to help them along the way. But on the other side of that too, along with what you offer, I mean, sometimes just taking a minute to look things up online is all that you need. And then you need somebody like True Heart Records to take you to the next level with your business and a business plan. Do you get the indie artists say to you, why do I need a business plan? I'm a musician.
It's really more of a development plan than a business plan. It's like, what are your goals? What are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? And how are we going to get there? And then we build that plan together. We review their stuff. One of the first things I look at when I talk to a potential new artist is their metrics. And I'm not looking for huge numbers like Universal or Sony would do. I'm looking at their numbers to see, number one, that they're not buying likes and fans and supporters, that they're organic and growth, and that they engage with those fans. It's the engagement where they typically lose out on their metrics and they kind of plateau and they sit there. So a slower, sustained organic growth. You're always growing, whether it's 2 people, 10 people, 20 people every day. It doesn't have to be 10,000 next week. You just get there. You just every day you're taking steps. And as long as you're engaging, that's a huge part. That's where you're going to build, again, I'll go right back to it. That's where you're going to build relationships with your fans. Yeah. And they're going to be your biggest supporters.
And that's so important, is the fan base. And I know other indie artists can be your fan as well, but you really want a true fan base, just as you described, those that, you have taken the time to build this relationship with, not
Yes,
not just somebody, tagging you and following you, but somebody who truly is passionate about what you're passionate about, your music. So,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
everybody in a band should be participating in it. Everybody's in it together. And I know some musicians are like, well, I hate social media. And I'm just like, well, yeah, that's good. It might not help you.
Okay. We all have that love-hate relationship with
Yes,
social media, but that doesn't mean that you have to do the Facebook. You can, I mean, there's Instagram and there's TikTok and what have you. And it really,
sure.
these days you can build a free website, but then you still need to kind of wrap back around to social media to get your fans to, come and check your website out. So it's that circle that you
Yeah.
just have to keep the momentum
You
going.
have to keep it going. So usually one of the first things I look at is metrics, and then I put them on that path of organic growth. Then they start seeing their networks grow. Then all of a sudden they're meeting somebody like, hey, why don't we gig together? I see you're going to be here, and I'm in this band over here, or my cousin's in a band. Talk to them; they can get you a gig and out of town. Next thing you know, you're touring around a certain region, and it just grows. I mean,
Exactly.
that's what we did with Indie on Air Records and Indie on Air. It grew into national tours. We had 3 national tours to South by Southwest to put on our Texas Indie Fest, which ran for 10 years during South by.
You and your partners have years of experience in putting this
Yes.
yeah, right? And putting this program together. So how has the indie artist been reacting to your program? Are they seeking you out? You seek them out? How does that part?
Most of them reach out to us.
Good.
It's very few that I'll reach out and say, hey, we want to work with you.
Hmm.
We don't chase people. You
Okay. Yeah.
know, we're kind of the mindset, if our vibration is of a certain level and our energy and yours is too, you'll find us. And most of them react like, no, this is too good to be true. We've gotten that a lot of times. And some of them you just walk away because they don't believe it. But that's choices. So
Yeah, absolutely. And have any of the naysayers come back and say, I do want to give you a chance. I've talked to so and so, and they've had, positive reactions to your program.
yeah, we've had some artists that contacted us, and I explain all that to them, and then I don't hear from them. All of a sudden, a month or 2 months down the road, here I am getting contacted again. They're like, hey, we're still interested. Because
See?
I encourage them to go out and talk to other companies. And all of a sudden they're learning, oh, we got to pay $500 for what you're going to do for that. That's
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because they're making money off of their backs. Until artists believe that we're real in that regard, they think it's too good to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't think of a better way to start out with having, somebody like yourself and your partners helping indie artists, from where they're starting out to getting that fan base and getting their matrix correct and everything else. So, excuse me, I don't know why anybody wouldn't at least want to give you a try.
There's no risk because there's no contract. So
Right.
it's
There's
30.
that. That's such
Hey,
a
oh,
big
you lost
thing.
$35. I bet you
Yeah.
lost $35 out drinking one night.
But that's so true. My gosh. Like I've said, and you've said yourself, you have done so many things in your career. You're the creator and executive producer for 3 national music tours. South by Southwest, the Abolitionist Tour, the Ascension Tour, the Revolution Tour. Are you still part of all that?
The tour, no, 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 no. So those tours, like the Abolitionist tour was in 2011, the Ascension tour was in 2012. The Revolution tour really featured an artist that came over from London, and he toured the country here, and I set him up with a bunch of gigs, and then it culminated with the artists that we worked with on those tours, and everybody going to Austin and
Gotcha.
to play at Texas Indie Fest. That was 2015, I believe.
Wow.
So those things were like one and done, but they were all part of Texas Indie Fest and building that brand,
Okay.
which Texas Indie Fest, like I said, ran for 10 years, but we took the Indie Fest brand and branched that out into festivals, which we did across the country in different
Amazing.
states.
You were and still are nonstop.
Yes.
What's your take on the indie artist community presently?
It's the same as it ever was. There's hidden gems everywhere.
Yeah.
There's so many artists, there's so many different genres that are so good that should be all over the radio, and they're not. And I say radio, but that I mean all over the platforms, I should say nowadays. But
Right.
they're not, because they cannot get airplay like that, because the labels are conglomerates, and the conglomerates bought up the radio stations. So the same music is played in Miami that's played in Seattle, which takes me to where Seattle was probably the last region that had authentic sound coming out of it at a mainstream level, and that was grunge. Since then, all these radio stations, they just bought them all. Kind of like what Live Nation's done with venues.
Oh,
A lot of the
okay.
music venues, they buy them all.
Right.
Also, the ticket prices are higher. The
It's
just
insane.
everything goes up because they're just huge companies buying up everything.
Yeah.
So give me the independence anytime. And
Agreed.
corporations are just about numbers and money.
Bottom line, that is their greedy bottom line. Absolutely, 100%. So let me ask you this question, and you don't have to answer, but what do you see? What do you see in the community that indie artists are doing that doesn't necessarily help their careers, that maybe they should give a second thought to?
Well, number one, I said engagement when you're on social media. A lot of them just shy away from that. That's a big thing to try to get them over that hump. You got to work it, and you got to do it every day. It's not that hard to make a post. Just do it, engage, and then talk when someone asks you a question.
Yeah.
Answer them.
Yeah.
Don't leave them hanging.
Right.
And also minimizing themselves, because they compare themselves to the larger successful artists that are touring. They say,
Right.
"Oh, well, how can I ever do that?" And well, maybe you can't do that, but maybe you can build a great career in music.
Yeah.
You don't have to work retail,
right,
or in the restaurant business. Things you don't have to do, but you just believe in yourself. Otherwise, you're defeating yourself before you even begin.
Yeah. Is there one event that has stood out in your career? I know that's got to be a hard one.
Okay, now, let's talk about reasons why it stood out. Good, bad, ugly.
What was the craziest moment in your career?
Oh my gosh. Probably at one Texas Indie Fest. We ran, as we got towards the latter years of that festival run, we were doing 4 nights in Austin. We had like 40 plus bands. And really the venue was a small little whiskey bar called the Red Shed Tavern, located away from downtown in the Madness. We had this backyard beer garden with a red shed that had a stage built in it. It was really cool. But, one night there were storms everywhere, all over Austin. It rolled through. They shut down 6th Street because of the storms and the lightning and that. So we had to shut it down. We kept going because we moved everything inside this little venue. And while we were doing that, Scott Weiland and his band, the Wildabouts, came in, and they hung out with us for hours inside, watching and listening to everybody had to play acoustic inside that could. It was all fly by night.
Oh my God.
But here we are with these big artists, and we ended up all hanging out, just drinking beer together. And
how cool is that?
It turned from this festival to a house party with Scott Weiland.
I mean, that doesn't always happen. Oh my God, that is crazy. I like that. Well, I'm glad I reworded that question for you.
All right.
So I know I know one of the questions I usually ask, but you've given so much. Is there any other advice that you would give indie artists who's just starting out? What advice would you give them?
Surround yourself with good people, people that truly believe in you, that don't want anything. And create, 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 and always work your craft. Always work your craft. Always improve. If you're serious about it, work at it. You're going to make yourself better. The more you know, the better you'll do. And remember to treat people the same as you're going up as when you're coming down, because you're going to see the same people.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a very informative conversation. And again, it's True Heart Records. And the program that we were talking and have been talking about is the Digital Manager Program. Jeff and his team are more than happy to hear from you. So how can they get in touch with you?
www.trueheartrec.com.
All right.
Go to the website, learn a bit about us. You'll probably get a feel of what we're about when you go there. Watch for content that we're going to be putting out. You know, we're doing a virtual Indie Fest this coming Friday. I know that's going to happen before this comes out. It'll be on YouTube and Facebook Live. So it'll be on our YouTube channel. It'll also be cleaned up from the live broadcast. We got some great things going on. We got bands from across the U.S., but also from Oslo, Norway, Taupo, New Zealand. We have an Irish artist that might be on there from Cork, Ireland.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I actually have that on my calendar. So do you have those often, or is that something you started up just recently?
This is our first one.
This is your first one.
We hired a professional production team, so it should be TV quality. At least that's what I'm looking for. So this could be one of my bad experiences if it's not.
Or let's just call it a learning experience.
There you go.
We just learn from all those tiny mistakes. I'm looking forward to it. I think that's pretty cool. And I just think that's something, another avenue that, you and True Heart Records offer.
Yeah. And, what we're doing too, we're showing that different people from different places and different genres can work together to help each other. Music is the bridge that brings people together.
I like that. And on that note, Jeff, thank you so much for being a guest on R2RB podcast series.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
You are welcome.